this, and you should have the Singleton handout. That's an essay about Alice Walker's short story. That's all you need in front of you for the timed writing. So if you'll look over at the board over here, let me just show you what we're going to do and then what you're going to need to do after we finish. We'll follow the same pattern that we followed for the first in-class essay, even though this is your first actual AP test type timed writing. Okay? So you can see that my focus for today is how important is planning and pre-writing to the quality of your final draft. And you told me when you did the reflection on your in-class summer reading, just about every single person told me I was amazed at how much difference it made. The difference in when you can prepare for it outside of class and then write it in class, and when you have to do it all in a short amount of time, is that you think, well, I don't have time for that planning and pre-writing, and so I'm just going to skip over that and go straight to the writing, because the writing, that's the most important part. But the truth is, you will stumble and stutter and hesitate and rethink all the way through that essay if you do not plan and pre-write ahead of time. So we're going to do a little bit of that by design this time. So you can see on the board over there when I say review. Ordinarily, right before the AP essay, when you walk into that test, nobody's going to say, now before you write the essays, let's go over some of the things that's going to make your essay better. But these are the things, and we'll do that as we're learning to write it. But then you will have to do it yourself for the test. We'll do it in review, but you need to get in the habit of preparing for these things, not just saying, oh, we have a timed writing, so that means I don't have any work to do. You do have work to do. For example, I gave you a list of great words that I had personally copied down over a couple of years worth of AP reading in Louisville, that I just thought these are great words I'm encountering that students have used, and I put them on Google Classroom. Did anybody think to look over those words to say, to increase my diction, to make my writing more sophisticated, it would behoove me to look at that list of really good words and say, I'm going to make a goal of using some of those words. That's the kind of thing that you need to do before every timed writing, to just pick yourself up. So we're going to pick you up. I'm going to pick you up a little bit today, but then you need to take the responsibility of doing it yourself. So we're going to review the deconstruction of the prompt. We're going to review the writing pattern choreography that I taught you. We're going to review MOA. You're going to read an exemplar essay. I want you to have an 8 or 9 fresh in your head before you start writing. And then we're going to look at the scoring guide for the essay you're going to write. Now, you will never, ever have that. I can't give you that before you go into the actual test because I don't know what the questions are going to be. Nobody knows ahead of time. But this is an essay I scored. I was a reader for this essay in 2014, so I have the scoring guide. I have lots of our benchmark essays where we scored it, and then I also have all my notes from both our examination of the piece and my notes that I did that kept me from being bored. Sometimes we would just write down some of the funny things that kids would say in their essays. I'll share those with you too. But so that's what we're going to do before you start writing. I'm not going to share the funny things. I'll just do those other things. Then you're going to write the timed writing. Now, I don't know how much time that front end is going to take. Last block, it took all of our time. So what people ended up having to do was what you did last time, and that was just take a picture with your phone of your pages and then go put that and turn it in. If you don't finish this essay when time is called, you don't get to add to it when you type it up for turn it in. You have to type in exactly what you wrote in class. Understand, I will score it for you. I will give you an authentic score that essay would get in the AP reading. But I will not give you a grade based on that score. You'll put that in to Turnitin, and then you have this. You will write yourself up as high as you can, and I will grade that. All right? My goal is not to play gotcha on any given timed writing. My goal is to get you to write your way up to a higher score. And that should be your goal too, right? Okay, so I think that's fair. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to write the essay, and you're going to type it. You probably will not have time to do that in class today, but you will do that whether you take a picture of it. You'll leave your essay here so that I can guarantee nothing changes, and then you'll type that in to turn it in. The essay will follow the same pattern. We'll do this every time. You'll see that this is my pattern and this is how I get good writing. When you put that in to turn it in, you'll also see an assignment that is a reflection. That reflection, I want you to do that at the time that you upload your paper because it's fresh. And there's 3 questions. I don't need long answers. I don't want an essay on that. There's just 3 questions about this review, about the writing, about just that kind of stuff. Okay, so just do that quickly because I want you to be reflective. When we are reflective about our own writing, that's, again, when we improve. If you look at any self-improvement process, whether it is like Alcoholics Anonymous trying to get people to give up an addiction, or a self-help book of how to lose weight or something, the first step is always what?
Acceptance.
Acknowledge that you have this, right? Knowing knowing the reality of it. So you've got to understand and know this is what I do. This is what I'm writing before you can then move yourself up. All right? If you're an 8, I want you to move to a 9. If you're a 5, I want you to move to a 6. Then I want you to move to a 7. Hopefully by the time you take this test, you're comfortably writing 7s, 8s. All right, so let's start with the first thing that you do. When you get the prompt, what do?
Read it.
You read the prompt. Yeah, there you go, Sean. You read the prompt. And then what do you do?
Read it again.
Okay, then read it again, or let's just call that then deconstructing, right? So we're going to deconstruct the prompt because that's how we get our what? Marching orders. There you go. That's how you get your marching orders. You've got to have the marching orders in order to ensure paragraph by paragraph by paragraph that you're fulfilling the obligation of the prompt. If you do not do that, you're going to be just like being on that float, not anchored, with your eyes closed in the warm sun on the lake, and you think you know exactly where you are until you open your eyes and see you have drifted away from where you thought you were. And that is exactly what happens. So this is anchoring you. Writing the marching orders anchors you to the prompt and keeps you where you're supposed to be. So, all right, let's talk about the marching orders. So, first thing you're going to do in the deconstruction is marching orders. So, what might the prompt say? Give me some things that it might tell you to do. What's the first thing it's going to tell you to do? Read the thing. Yes. So how are you going to read? You're going to write down read the thing? Because that's your very first thing. It will say read the poem, read the passage thoroughly, or read it, whatever. So what are you going to do with those words?
Do them.
I want you to write words that are different from that. What does that look like? You read something like read closely, read thoroughly. That's just a word. What does that look like when you do it? How are you going to read it?
Underline.
You're going to read actively. Okay? So read, and I want you to write these words out. What else might you say other than that? Read actively, read. What have you said? Purposefully. That's a good one. Purposefully. What else? A lot of you said you needed to do this in your multiple choice analysis. You need to read more.
Carefully. Slowly.
Yeah, slowly, carefully, yes. So you pick, you don't have to write down every word that comes to your mind, but if you do, write some of these. This is what it looks like when you read closely. So that when you go back to look at that anchor, you're reminded of that. Did I skim over that part? Maybe you're trying to write about a part that you really can't even remember what that's about. You sort of read that one too fast. I want to add the word intentionally, because when you read with intention, that's a different reading. All right, so what might it say next?
And in a well-organized essay.
Yes, in a well-organized essay. How are you going to get the well-organized essay?
Pre-write.
You're going to pre-write. You're going to plan. You're going to write a little bit of an outline. You told me in your reflections of the summer reading one that outline made the writing so easy. Don't you think that in a crunched time, high-stressed environment, that anything you can do to make the writing easier, you would be smart to do it? And if you found out yourself that doing an outline made it easier, then by golly, don't skip that. That's what you said. You discovered that made it easier. So do it. All right. So let's go back to reading just a minute. I'm going to call this read in 3. What do I mean by that?
3 different ways.
3 different ways. What are they?
Your eye.
Eyes, that's your intentionally. You're focusing on every word, because if you don't watch them, your eyes will zoom on past ahead of you, won't they? Do you have that happen? I do when I'm reading. I'll try to be reading with intention. Next thing I know, my eyes have gone way down here. Because I'm a fast reader. You are too, probably. You're a good reader. And your eyes are accustomed to that. And they just want to, they don't have patience with you. It's like they're acting on their own. Do you know what I mean by that?
Oh, yeah.
So you've got to slow them down. You've got to, with intention, just almost talk to them. Make them stop. They have to look at every word. They have to. Because the author put those words in there. You might be just over the most important word and then miss the meaning. So you've got to slow them down. Read intentionally. That's one way. What's the second way? With your eyes, with your
Hands.
okay, with your voice. Where's your voice?
Your head.
In your head. You've got to hear it. That makes you slow down. And if you can't hear the head voice, what should you do?
Start over.
You can, I'd start over. But what else can you do that's a trick to make you hear the head voice if you just don't like your own voice?
Talking
Accent.
and accent.
Yes, you get so accustomed to your own sound that sometimes you drown it out in your haste to get your eyes down here. So change it up. Read in the voice of a little girl, or read in the voice of an old man, or read with a British accent, or read like a Southern person if it's a real Southern piece. Whatever it takes, get that voice in your head and make it happen. If you're reading dialogue, switch voices for each character. Read with a head voice. Okay, so that's the second one is head voice. What's the third?
Hand.
Your hand. Your hand needs to be moving because that is the active reading. Underline? Should you underline stuff?
No.
Why not?
Because not
follow
specific.
the line.
Yeah. When you go back to look at that, all you're going to see is a bunch of lines. There's no meaning to any of that, just a bunch of lines. It's like people who highlight too much. You go back and it's nothing but a yellow page. If you do nothing else, then it's meaningless. It was a waste of your lining. So let's say you're reading and you come across a metaphor. Then maybe you could underline that, but then take that line and go way out into the margin and put a big M with an arrow. So that if you need to write about a metaphor, or you're in multiple choice and you come to a metaphor question, you go right back up, there it is, boom. You don't have to say, I know I saw one somewhere, because in your haste and your anxiety, you're going to read over and over and over and you won't be able to find it. Let's say you come to a pronoun and you think, wait, who's this? Where's the antecedent to that pronoun? Who is that referring to? Before you keep going, find it, circle the antecedent, draw a line to the pronoun, circle that, because multiple choice will many times ask you who is the he referring to. And if you've already marked it, you're golden. And sometimes you'll need that in your own essay analysis as well. If you see some great description and it's referring to something, then you think, oh, this is symbolic. This is a journey. I can tell this author's writing about a journey. Or you see flies and you go, oh, death is coming, or this is about death. Then you can maybe circle fly and out here put death. And then you see something else. It gets to be nighttime and you go, oh, that looks like death as well. Circle out to death. You just have to have death out there one time, and everything you run into, just circle and run your line out to it. All of that helps you, because the next thing that you're going to do in marching orders is you're going to break down the verbs, right? What does it tell you to do? It tells you to analyze or compare or something. There's going to be a verb. You're looking for the verbs. And it might say, analyze the father and son's relationship through the author's use of literary devices. So that's really a two-part order. You're going to have to analyze the relationship, but you've got to have the literary devices written down there. Otherwise, this is where you start drifting. People would start writing an essay, a beautiful essay, and it would be all about the relationship. And they'll totally forget the literary device. And they'll think, I wrote an 8 essay. I wrote a 9. That's the best essay I've ever written. But they didn't get that part of it because they didn't anchor themselves and go back and see it. Right? So now that you've got all those things, and maybe this marching order is a two-part, so you've got part 1 and part 2. And now the next thing you've got to do is read it before you can do any more note-taking. So you're going to read it just the way. And if you need to remind yourself before you actually start reading it, that I need to read it actively or purposefully or slowly, carefully, intentionally. My eyes need to see it. I need to read in 3. Just keep that in mind. Read in 3. Eyes, intentionally, eyes pausing on every word, ears with my head voice going, and hand actively annotating as I go. Remind yourself that, and then read. Because your goal, you're still watching the clock. Your goal is, I don't want to have to get to the end of this and go, I don't have a clue what I just read. And now I'm going to have to waste time and go back and read it again. And everybody in this room has had that happen, haven't you? And there are times that I've read something and my mind has been wandering while I'm reading, and I'm trying to keep parallel thoughts. My eyes are fooling me into thinking that I'm reading this because they're engaging with every word, but my brain has checked out and is doing something entirely different. And so I know when I get to the end that I have engaged every word in that passage. But do I know what they were? No, I don't. Sometimes I've done that 3 times. And when you have an active mind like we do, you are trying to do so many things at one time. And you're accustomed to multitasking, and so your brain is going to try to do that. But the truth is our brain is really only capable of consuming one thing at a time. It's why if I walked over here and started talking to Angela, and while I'm talking to Angela, Tori starts talking to Angela, Angela's going to have to say, one of you has to, I can't listen to both of you at the same time. Your brain cannot. You know, if we develop as a species to the point that our brain can do that, whole lots of things will change. But right now, that's what we're dealing with. Okay? So then you read the passage, the poem, whatever it is that you're going to read. And now, do you start writing the essay?
No.
No. Why?
You gotta reread the prompt.
Because now you haven't done the outline part. So now you go back to this prompt and you review what you've written here, and then you start your little outline. Because I'm supposed to use literary devices. I marked 3 of them as I went through. Found evidence of them. So now I'm going to write them down. I might even put line numbers here. And relationship, the father and son relationship maybe is what's in my prompt. And so I'm going to write that down over here. Father-son relationship is complex. Oh, College Board loves the word complex or complexity. You use that, you're golden. That's right now, that's the big buzzword in College Board. Complex relationship. I bet it'll be on your exam. Or complexity. So the relationship is complex. Well, how is it complex? Well, they don't understand each other. There was a drifting apart of the relationship. Maybe there's a clear tone in the beginning of anger, and there is a shift somewhere in that passage, and there becomes some reconciliation. So I'll write that down, whatever it is. Am I finished? Not if it told me to use how to do it through literary devices. So I'm going to have to make sure that I have fulfilled the purpose of my prompt in my notes. And then as I look at the notes, I'm going, it might be more logical to start with this, and then move to this, and then move to this. I'm not married to these notes. As I write, something else might come to my mind. It probably will. But this is that in a well-organized essay. This is going to allow me to have that well-organization that College Board's looking for, that your AP readers are counting on. All right? So now I write my essay. I still have some time. What do I do?
Get back to the prompt.
Go back. Yes, go back, go back, go back. This is when you wordsmith. You see what you can do. Because you're writing with a friction pen, right? How many of you brought your friction pen today? Everybody, you don't have one, do you?
No.
I ordered you some.
Hey,
If they were here today, yeah, I did order you some. So the next time you'll have one. All right, so stand up with me. You know where we're going now, right?
Oh, yeah.
This is deconstruction or writing pattern choreography.
that one.
Now, I know that there are some of you in the room who will think, I'm just too cool to do this. I got it. I don't need it. And I will tell you everything that I know about the brain and learning is that if you put things into muscle memory, they will stay there better. So that's what we're trying to do. So what I come up with to teach you what I'm trying to teach you, I do so with everything that I know and have researched and learned, not just for fun, but with absolute intention and design. So the reason we're doing this is to put it in muscle memory, and it works. It really works. All right, so we're writing. This is our first paragraph, right? Okay. Now where are we going?
Back to the prompt.
Back to the prompt. Write your next one. Where are we going? Back to the prompt. We're writing. Where are we going? Now stay at the prompt. Why are we there? What are we doing at that prompt?
To make sure we weren't writing
Fulfilling it.
Yes. So we're not just going, okay, yeah, there's the prompt, and here we go. We're actually thinking about what we just wrote, and we're looking at our notes and our marching orders to see, did I do that in that paragraph? Because if I wrote a beautiful paragraph about that relationship, and I neglected to talk about the literary devices, or if it asked me for the MOA, and I didn't even mention that before I moved to the next paragraph, I have a chance to add without drawing one of those lines. And when I was rereading, follow here, put this here. All right, let's do it choreography style, right? We're gonna write back to the prompt, right? Back to the prompt. Come on, right? Back to the prompt. Right. Back to the prompt. Let me hear you.
Right. Back to the prompt.
Right.
Back to the prompt.
Right.
Back to the prompt.
Right.
Back to the prompt.
Put some
We're getting low here.
Back to the prompt. Right. Back to the prompt. Right. Back to the prompt. All right, do it in your micro motion here. Okay, like you're at the test. You got it. Okay. All right, now, I've given you an exemplar essay. You can sit down. This essay was one of my students in a real timed writing, and I want you to read this essay because as we're trying to move ourselves up, I want you to have a high scoring essay in your head as a model. And I'm going to let you keep this essay out if you even need to refer to it while you're writing, but don't spend too much of your time doing that. But I am going to ask you now to read that essay silently and make particular note of things you think that student does exceptionally well. That got that student, that was an 8, I believe, that got that student an 8. All right, go ahead and read that essay now. Look up when you finish. All right, I think most of you have finished. What did that student do well?
She like integrated her quotes from the story very like
Yes.
seamlessly.
Did all of you notice how beautifully those quotes were embedded? If you have ever gotten a paper back that said, you need to embed your quotes more smoothly, this is your model. This is how you do it. Did you see? Every quote doesn't have to be a complete sentence that's being quoted. And never did this writer say, as she stated, comma, quote. They were seamlessly embedded. Not even the full sentence, just sometimes little pieces of a sentence, little phrases that just were part of that writer's writing. So when the rubric or the scoring guide for AP readers says that there's command of writing elements, that's command. That's an example of command. All right, what else did this student do well?
Completely analyze each paragraph whenever necessary.
Yes, there's a very deliberate sequential analysis that moves through. It was well organized. Yeah. What else?
She answers all parts of the.
Absolutely answers all the parts of the prompt. Yes, because the prompt is up there. I hope you started by reading the prompt. But she answers all parts of the prompt and does so completely. You're convinced. Aren't you persuaded? And remember in the scoring guide, the 8-9 verb is persuasive. Does she even do it with a little drama? A little, can you hear the voice in that? Wasn't that an easy to read essay? It didn't sound academic and stiff or stuffy. Very easy to read. How about getting in and getting out? Timed writing. Quick in, quick out, but it did the job, didn't it? Quick in, quick out. We don't need long introductions. We don't need long conclusions. But does your reader need to know that you are going to answer the prompt in the beginning? Yes. Because the reader's going to decide after your first paragraph this is an upper tier or a lower tier paper. You want your reader to think, okay, this student knows where he's going with this essay, upper tier. Now, let's just go, that means I'm going to start at a 5, maybe a 6. And then as I read, I'm going to go, ooh, 7. Oh, no, 8. But you don't want me to start and go, I'm not sure. This may be one of those, remember the saying I told you, there are many rooms in the house of 4? You don't want to be in one of those rooms. From the very beginning, you want your reader to think upper tier. How about vocabulary?
Line read.
Nice vocabulary. So there's a sophistication to both the syntax and the diction and a command of. So we're not looking for something that sounds like a professor wrote it. We're just looking for something that is clear and written well and seamlessly with voice. And there's a great example. Now pull out the scoring guide. What I've done is create an actual AP writing booklet for you. The cover is, clearly not official. That's my handwriting because I forgot to type something up, got down to the copy room and wrote that. But these pages inside are actual pages that will be, and if you took AP Lang, you recognize this. They're all the same. So when you are writing, you will put in the box the number of the essay that you are writing. Remember I told you, you do not have to write them in the order they're given to you. You can write them in any order you want to. So we're starting with the number 2. This is a question 2. So you'll put a 2 in the box. For every page you write, it'll be 2. You can put Q2 or just 2. You've got enough pages. There's 16 actual pages in this. So that's enough for at least 3, probably more, essays. We'll write a Q2 in here first. And then we'll add to it. We'll write a Q3. We'll write a Q1. But when we finish, you'll have a Q1, a Q2, and a Q3 all in one book with your scores. We'll put that with a multiple choice that you do, and you'll see, okay, if I took the test right now, here's where I stand. So that gives you a plan. You can set a goal on the Q2 or on the Q1, on the Q3, on the multiple choice. This is what I've got to do to get my score to ultimately the score on the test that I want. So when you turn this in today, I'll be giving it back to you. Your rewrite will not be done necessarily in here because these will be all the original ones. But I don't know, maybe we'll think about it. I don't want you to use up your pages. But also remember that I told you, you will not get a 5 or higher if it is not onto the 3rd page. It is very, very rare that I've ever awarded a 5 to the 2-page essay. You've got to get to the 3rd page. If you want to be in the upper, you better be full 3, maybe even onto the 4.
This essay was 3 pages.
Written out, yeah.
Oh.
See, it's short by being typed. If you flip on the back of that, you'll see all the strengths that I typed out for what that essay has. Yes?
Were the paragraphs like separated like they are here?
No.
No, okay.
They were separated paragraphs, and they are short paragraphs. And that's okay, because nobody is, as a reader, nobody's gonna judge how long your paragraphs are. They're gonna judge the content of what you're saying.
Wait, so I'm saying, like, is the length, like.
There were that many paragraphs.
Okay, alright, that's all.
And so some of you who struggle with, oh, I've gotta write 5 paragraphs, it's gotta be, count how many paragraphs there were in that paper. A lot more than 5. No 3-pronged thesis, no formula here. This is how you divide. Every thought that she changed was a new idea, got a new paragraph. There was a shift. All right, so in the middle of this, you should find the scoring guide for this exact essay you're about to write. Let's go through it very quickly. You're going to be writing the 2014 essay that I scored, as I told you. It's, this is like an introductory or the first chapter. It's a long piece, just like that Alice Walker was. That's why I gave you the Alice Walker, that's a short story on 1 page. So if you're gonna write an 8-9, follow this closely. I'm not skipping a word because I want you to see everything so you'll know where you need to go. These essays offer a persuasive analysis of how Jones reveals the character of Moses through literary elements. The writers make a strong case for their interpretation of how the character is revealed. They may consider literary elements such as point of view, selection of detail, and imagery, and they engage the text through apt and specific references. Apt means perfectly chosen. Although these essays may not be error-free, their perceptive analysis is apparent in writing that is clear and effectively organized. Essays scored a 9 reveal more sophisticated analysis and more effective control of language than do essays scored an 8. Remember I told you a 9 sings. Now let me give you just a real brief thing on such as. AP readers call it the such as trap. So lots of your prompts will say such as this one will, such as point of view, selection of detail, and imagery. Such as means here's a few easy ones, but it's not all of them. What they give you in the such as, I call low-hanging fruit. That's easy to get. But if you can go beyond and do something better and different, your reader will reward you for that. And remember, it even says, reward the writers for what they do well. And if one of the things you did well was go somewhere else other than low-hanging fruit, then you'll be rewarded for that. Do it well, though. If your brain freezes and all you can think of are point of view, selection of detail, and imagery, then you just write the best essay you can on the ones they give you. Don't waste time thinking, I gotta think of another one, I gotta think of another one. Just write the best you can. All right, these essays, 7-6, these essays offer a reasonable analysis of how Jones reveals the character of Moses through literary elements. The writers provide, watch this, a sustained competent reading of the passage. How do you get a sustained, competent reading? You do it this way: actively, purposefully, slowly, carefully, intentionally. Sustained competence. Now, you just don't get a little part of it, and all you write on is that little part of it that you clearly were, tuned into, and missed all the rest. With attention to literary elements such as point of view, selection of detail, and imagery. Although these essays may not be error-free and are less perceptive or less convincing than 9A, the writers present their ideas with clarity and control and refer to the text for support. That's those quotes. Essays scored a 7 present better developed analysis and more consistent command of the elements of effective composition than do essays scored a 6. Here's your middle-of-the-road 5. These essays respond to the assigned task with a plausible reading of the passage, but tend to be superficial or thin in their discussion of how Jones reveals the character of Moses through literary elements. While containing some analysis of the passage, implicit or explicit, the discussion of how literary elements contribute to the revelation of character may be slight, and support from the passage may tend towards summary or paraphrase. Watch that. Summary or paraphrase means you're not quoting. While these writers demonstrate adequate control of the language, that's vocabulary, you're just skimming from the top of the vocab plot, their essays may be marred by surface errors. These essays are not as well conceived, organized, or developed as 7-6. The key to organized and developed comes in the pre-writing. 4. Many rooms in the house of 4. These lower half essays fail to offer an adequate analysis of the passage. The analysis may be partial, unconvincing, or irrelevant. The writers may ignore how Jones reveals the character of Moses or the use of the literary elements, meaning they didn't fulfill all of the prompt. What that's saying is both of those are pieces of the prompt, and they did one but not the other. 4. That's where I tell you, I can't give you anything higher than the 4 if you don't do everything in the prompt. These essays may be characterized by an unfocused or repetitive presentation of ideas. Some of you have a problem with repeating yourself. An absence of textual support or an accumulation of errors. Essays scored a 3 may contain significant misreading or demonstrate inept writing. 2, it compounds the problems. Persistently misread the passage or be unacceptably brief. Unacceptably brief is 1 page or less. They may contain pervasive errors that interfere with understanding, and some attempt has been made, but your ideas are presented with little clarity, organization, or support. Not a single quote anywhere to be found. Nobody's going to make a 0. Any questions? You can keep that in front of you. You can keep the model essay, the exemplar essay in front of you. You've got this. I'm getting ready to give you the prompt. Now, the first 8 minutes, you will not be allowed to actually be writing the essay. The first 8 minutes, you must be doing your marching orders, your reading, and you may take longer than that, but I'm going to time you those 8 minutes, and don't turn it over until I give everybody the start sign.
Miss Jackson, can I go to the restroom?
Fast. Good one to Sean back there.
Miss Jackson, can we write on this?
Oh.
Absolutely. Always write all over your prompt.
Oh, wait. I think I.
One for Isaiah, one for Sean.
Oh.
Okay, you have 8 minutes to write, to do your reading and pre-writing, and your time starts now. It is 1:14.